Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.
Writing a weekly column will be the topic on Read About It tonight. Hi, I'm B.J. Williams. With me is Pam Fleischaker to talk about her new book, American Woman, Lost and Found in Oklahoma. We also have with us Susie Beasley, Frank Ray, Heidi Johnson, Doug Benton, Evelyn Davis, and John Brewer. Coming up, Pam Fleischaker.
The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It, with your host, B.J. Williams.
Pam Fleischaker is a freelance writer and contributing editor of the Oklahoma Gazette. She has been a political and media consultant for an impressive list of political candidates. She is also a presidential appointee to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Council. She has most recently, with Full Circle Bookstore, published a book, American Woman, Lost and Found in Oklahoma, and it is actually a collection of columns that you have written for the Gazette, right?
That's right.
How did you choose the particular columns that went into this book?
Well, it was a challenge. I have written for the Gazette either on the staff or as a contributor for nearly 14 years. And so I had written hundreds and hundreds. I wanted the good ones.
Of course.
The ones that people liked, that people responded to. And I wanted a good representation. By that I mean, I write about a lot of different things. I write about family, my family of origin, my family now. I write about politics in Oklahoma and politics nationally, and I write about cultural issues, social things, funny things. So I wanted a representation from each of those categories, and to be perfectly honest, my husband and I spread out all over the floor one summer day on vacation, about 100, and narrowed it down to about 45 of what we both thought were the best.
That must have been very difficult to do.
It was fun, though. It was.
Now, you start the book actually with a short autobiography. So is that something that you wrote specifically for the book?
It is. Turning a column, a weekly column, which is a response usually to something going on at the time, into a book that comes together needed a framework, a context, if you will. Excuse me. And the publisher, Jim Tolbert from Full Circle Press, and my editor, who is Shauna Lawyer Struby, really felt that my background, coming from Texas, but then living in the East, working in politics, national politics, for presidential campaigns, working in women's rights, and then working in the media, and then coming back to Oklahoma City, raising a family, gave me a unique perspective. I also am a left of center Democrat in and a Jewish woman in a predominantly conservative Christian culture, Republican culture. So all of those things, they felt, we all felt, brought a perspective to my writing that was important for the reader and would help the book come together. So yes, I did write that introduction and the author's note by way of saying, here's where I am coming from.
And I think particularly for people who have not followed your column all these years in the Gazette, that would be useful. But I think a lot of us who have read it off and on over these years have kind of gotten the feeling that, yeah, I think she is a little left of center. Yeah, she's obviously familiar with these folks, these weirdos out in Washington and that sort of thing. So if you're coming fresh to it, yeah, I think that helps quite a bit.
Thank you.
And now, I was not aware that you had grown up in Texas, and I read that and I thought, why? You know, I grew up out there in West Texas. That's not that far away.
Did you? Not at all. Yes, I did. I grew up in different towns in Texas, but most of my formative years in Dallas. And Dallas in the 50s and 60s felt much like Oklahoma City feels now, and did too. So I think I knew what I was getting into when we came back here.
Yeah, it hasn't changed that much, has
That's
it?
right.
The other thing that fascinates me about this collection is the idea of someone sitting down and writing something every week. It's a short piece, so obviously you have to prune and prune and prune, but how do you figure out what to write?
It is pruning. That's a good word. Boy, it helps to have an editor who says to you at the beginning, here's how much space you have every week. 600 words, period. You can cheat a little, 50 to 100 here, preferably go under. I write long, and I have been an editor at the Gazette for many years, and I can tell you that most people write long. We somehow become enamored of our words, and oh, I forgot to say this, and oh, let me throw in that. But you learn over time that it's very important to make your point, to make it concisely, to not complicate it or divert the reader's attention by making too many other points, too many tangential points. Don't go off on some tangent that's just going to distract them. So it's a discipline that you do learn over time, and I enjoyed learning it.
And obviously there are some times when we're all concerned about the presidential election, so obviously that's a good topic, but I'm thinking there are stretches when it doesn't seem like there's a great
Yes.
deal going on, and there's no holiday coming
Yes.
up, and you've got 600 words, which all of a
Exactly.
sudden seems like a lot.
Exactly. What do I write about this week? Well, I don't know if I have a particularly fertile brain and things just keep growing in there, but I almost always have something on my mind or in my soul that I want to talk about. And if not, frankly, I can pick up the Daily Oklahoman and respond to something in there or see something on television. There is so much information out there. I like to do something current. I like to see what's going on at City Hall, at the Capitol, and comment on it.
Great. Well, that's a wonderful place for us to end. I wish we had more time to talk, but I want to thank you very much for being with us here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed it.
We've had with us today Pam Fleischaker talking about her book, American Woman, Lost and Found in Oklahoma. It's available at Full Circle Bookstore and also your library. Coming up next, we have Susie Beasley. She'll be talking with Frank Ray about a video I think you'll enjoy.
Frank, tell us about Samuel Goldwyn's vintage classic, The Bishop's Wife.
Well, this is a perennial Christmas movie, one of the 6 or 7 major ones that are shown during Christmas. I checked it out because it was so hot right now. I wanted to see something cool.
Oh, that's
And
good.
it's a very good movie. Has Cary Grant as the Angel Dudley, David Nivens is the bishop, and Loretta Young is his wife, and they're having marital problems, plus David Nivens is trying to raise funds for a big cathedral, and he asks for spiritual guidance, and of course Dudley comes, and Dudley's not what David Nivens or Julia was expecting, and he creates a little havoc and shows them what the real meaning of Christmas and spirit of giving. Plus, it helps David Niven and Loretta Young's romance and marital life. This has wonderful co-stars: Monty Woolley, James Gleason, and Elsa Lancaster. This movie was nominated for Best Picture Academy Award. It lost out to Gentleman's Agreement, but it was in very good company. It's a 4-star classic, glorious black and white.
Right, not colorized.
Not color. It has been remade recently with Denzel Washington and Whitney Houston as the preacher's wife. I don't think that one did quite as well as this one did, but I still think it's a good movie because it's a good storyline.
Right. And this one was released in 1947?
At least that was when the Best Picture,
That it was
in that list for Best Picture was 1947. Yeah.
And as far as the storyline and the scenery, this is a funny movie.
It is. It's very humorous at times. Being a Christmas movie, it is kind of serious. It has a serious message in it, but it is a romantic comedy is how it's listed, and that's what I would call it too, but it has the Christmas overriding theme.
But your major reason for going to the library and pulling it off the shelf and checking it out was because of the heat waves.
Yes, because of the heat waves. That was the reason.
And the cool scenes that you see in the film.
And sometimes, it's hard to see this one sometimes. It comes on at weird times. We've got the video. You can watch it at your convenience, which is what I always like to do. If you need to go somewhere, you can stop it for a minute and come back and pick up where you left off. You don't lose the movie.
Yeah, well, so the scenery, David Niven and Loretta Young, they were the ones that drew you to it. And, of course, being a cool movie. Well, Frank, we appreciate you coming and sharing with us the vintage classic, 4-star award-winning Bishop's Wife, Samuel Goldwyn, and this video is available at your local library and your local bookstore. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank and Susie. And now I have a couple of books for you. This first one represents something that I'm sure most of you have as readers have encountered, which is you discover a book or a collection of works by an author that you wish you had encountered a long time ago when you were young and would have really enjoyed it, however much you enjoy it now. And this particular book, The Hub, Dangerous Territory, represents that for me. Now, this is a collection of a novel and several short stories by a science fiction writer by the name of James H. Smith. In the 50s and 60s, he wrote short stories for Analog, Astounding, and many other science fiction books, as well as a couple of novels, one of which is The Witches of Kerris, which I think a number of people have read. But at a time when science fiction seemed to be not only just for men and boys, it also had characters that seemed to be just men and boys. Women were almost non-existent in the field, and along comes James H. Smith, who features young women who are smart, dangerous, very deadly, and sometimes quite precocious, all in a very entertaining way. So he caused quite a ripple. Maybe he even set a fashion. And it is because of these young female characters that I really wish that I had encountered him many, many years ago when I was much younger. The first book of his that I ever read was The Demon Breed. And it features a young professional woman who is quite good looking, quite smart, and extremely deadly as the alien invaders of her frontier world find out to their cost. Schmitz is a great storyteller. He wrote prolifically in the way of short stories, and all of these can be enjoyed. Young adults, I think, would enjoy them, but adults get a kick out of them as well. Bayan Books has been busy the last year or so reissuing most of his work, and this is one of 4 books that have indeed already been published, which are collections of his short stories, and the one novel, The Demon Breed. A number of the short stories feature a quite young woman who is just 16 or 17, very precocious. She's already in college, but she discovered quite by accident that she is a telepath. And she's also highly placed. Her mom and dad are quite important in the Hub Federation, which is one of the universities Smith has created. And in between courses at university, she goes about saving the universe from the bad guys. Very entertaining. If you have not read Schmitz, I would recommend him to anybody who would enjoy a good, rollicking good story, whether they're particularly interested in science fiction or not. Schmitz is certainly not heavy either into fantasy or the hard sci-fi, so it's an easy read for anybody, particularly young people. I would say particularly young women. It never hurts to have a few heroes out there to sort of aim for, and Smits writes particularly appealing ones. Sometime later this year, Baen Books will indeed be putting out The Witches of Kerris, which is a rollicking good read about actually this time a young man who encounters three very young witches in his travels. He's just trying to make good and get back to his fiancée, and ends up with three young women who don't know when to stop, and again gets to save the universe. I guess that's one of the nice things about Smits, is you can always rely on a good story and a rousing good ending. Now this next book is on an entirely different subject, and it's Art and Archaeology of Rome from Ancient Times to the Baroque. It is edited by Andrea Algenti. Actually, it was originally published in Italian and has been translated into English for us to enjoy. And just even before I started reading this book, just looking through it and looking at all the beautiful illustrations, I really wanted to hop on a plane and fly to Italy and spend a year, maybe 2 years in Rome, just looking at all the stuff that is illustrated here. Not only does Rome have buildings, sculpture, frescoes, and mosaics that are well over 2,000 years old, it has an incredible number of museums. All of the museums are featured here with 2 or 3 pages of illustrations of some of their best holdings, as well as a lot of photographs and explanations of architecture, really from the Rome that was a kingdom before it became a republic even. There are some remnants of walls and buildings from that time, as well as a great deal from Imperial Rome. The Colosseum, I think, is probably the most famous, but there are still a number of Roman bridges left, fountains, and that sort of thing. Once Rome became a Christian city, the Pope set about doing their best to adorn this most important Christian city in the world, and the fruit of that is also illustrated in this book. The illustrations are lavish. The information that accompanies them is not in depth, but it certainly gives you a good idea of where all of these fit in history, as well as the history of art. If you're thinking about going to Rome, or figure you'll never get there but are interested in art, then Art and Archaeology of Rome would be a very great place to start. If you're interested at all in architecture or art, sculpture, this is another place to start. I think you would enjoy it very much. Coming up next is Kids Corner. Heidi Johnson was telling me about books for our very young readers. Heidi, what have you got for us here?
Hi, BJ. Well, 2 crazy chases. The first one is called Grandpa's Overalls, where Grandpa's overalls have a mind of their own, jump off the hook, take off, and everybody is chasing wildly after them, trying to catch them.
Well, Grandpa doesn't look like he's working real hard at this, though.
Well, Grandpa is enjoying his day off, as he puts it. You can't do any work when you're wearing your long-handled drawers only. So all the neighbors take pity on him and come over. First they help chase the overalls, which they never get a hold of. So they decide they're going to go ahead and do Grandpa's work for him that day. Which, yeah, like you said, he doesn't seem to mind very much. He's taking it easy reading a book in the barn. And the whole story concludes at the end. Well, Grandma calls everybody for supper, since everybody worked very hard. And just as she's sitting down to feed everybody, her nighties take off.
Oh, no.
With Grandpa's overalls. And there she goes, oh my goodness, a person can't sleep without a long-handled nightie. And they run off chasing the overalls and Grandma's nightie.
Oh, dear.
And I don't think they'll ever get any sleep.
Probably not. Well, this next one you said is a chase as well.
It's also a chase, and I learned why you should never have freshly cleaned white carpet try to eat sloppy joes, because you will make a royal mess of it. The whole story starts when a bird falls through the chimney, soot covered, and of course tries to get away. So there are bird tracks all over the house. The cat, the dog, father, mother, big brother, little sister, everybody gets into this wild chase. Of course, sloppy joes dripping everywhere, bird squawking, making a royal mess. And thank goodness at the end they finally all Ma opens the door and everybody chases each other out the front door.
Oh, dear.
And everybody is so glad that's all over with and they can have a peaceful house again, except little sister who looks up and says, "This was fun. Can we do this again?"
Now, these are read-to books, right?
They definitely read two books, or for children to participate, look at the pictures, but definitely read two stories.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Heidi, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Remember, you can find these books at your library and your favorite bookstore. It's time to do the New York Times bestseller list. We'll start out with adult fiction. Number 10 on that list is Between Lovers by Eric Jerome Dickey, A Painted House by John Grisham, A Traitor to Memory by Elizabeth George, Back When We Were Grown-Ups by Ann Tyler, Cane River by Lalita Tademi, Hollywood Wives, The New Generation by Jackie Collins, The Jury by Steve Martini, 7 Up by Janet Ivanovich, P is for Peril by Sue Grafton, Leap of Faith by Danielle Steele is number 1. On the adult nonfiction list, number 10 is Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom, The Truth Is by Melissa Etheridge with Laura Morton, When You Come to a Fork in the Road, Take It by Yogi Berra with Dave Kaplan, Seabiscuit by Laura Hillenbrand, Founding Brothers by Joseph Ellis, Napalm and Silly Putty by George Carlin, Justice by Dominic Doon, Ghost Soldiers by Hampton Sides. Number 2 is Stolen Lies by Malika Ofkir and Michelle Fitoussi, and number 1 is John Adams' David McCullough. On the children's list, number 10 is Jedi Apprentice, Deceptions by Jude Watson, The Captain Underpants Extra Crunchy Book of Fun by Dab Pilkey, The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot, Sure Thing by Judy Katchke, Quidditch Through the Ages by Kenilworthy Wisp, Holes by Louis Sekar, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander, Junie B. Jones is a Graduation Girl by Barbara Park, number 2 is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, and number 1 is Rowling's Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Coming up next are a couple of people I think you know pretty well. Doug Benton, who writes for the Oklahoma Gazette and also works at the Metropolitan Library System, and Evelyn Davis, who's also at the library. They got together and they have a book they'd like to share with you.
I am Evelyn Davis with the Metropolitan Library System, and for about 15 years, Doug Benton and I have had the strange and wondrous experience between ourselves of discussing books. So this time we're doing it for your benefit.
We're doing it in public for a change.
Yes, we are. Doug is talking about a book on Terry Southern, and I suspect that this name will ring only a faint chime to the majority of our readers. So who was he and what did he do?
Terry Southern was kind of an icon in the 1960s. I mean, for some of us who were in high school and in college and we wanted to be writers, there was really no discernible difference between Terry Southern and God at that time. Although other 60s writers like Kurt Vonnegut stayed with it and people know who they are, Southern seems to have written himself out by the end of the 60s. He was best known at the time as the co-author of a book called Candy with Mason Hoffenberg. It was referred to at the time as a dirty book. It was a satire on current American mores, taking as a basis Voltaire's Candide and sort of updating it. He was co-author of the screenplay for the movie Dr. Strangelove, which is probably the most well-known of his works today, the one that is still seen every once in a while on television. He co-wrote with Christopher Isherwood a screenplay for The Loved One, based on the Evelyn Waugh novel, and he worked on the screenplay for Easy Rider with Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda.
And that is another underground cult movie which surfaces from time to time.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned the idea of underground and cult movies, because that was kind of his downfall. Southern became associated with independent films. He pretty much abandoned writing novels after the 60s. didn't really want to do that anymore. He didn't write short stories. He still did some journalism, but did some journalistic work. He was one of the original gonzo journalists even before Hunter S. Thompson. But he concentrated on screenplays because he thought film was the art form of the late 20th century. But he was working so much with independent filmmakers, people who didn't have a whole lot of money, and frequently couldn't get their films produced. So he was doing good work. He was writing a lot. He continued to write all through the 70s, 80s. He died in 1995.
Okay.
But much of his work didn't make it to the public eye anymore because the screenplays were not being produced.
In your judgment, what deserves to be remembered today, if anything?
Recently, in conjunction, I think, with the publication of this biography, his four or five novels have come back into print. I think people could read The Magic Christian. I think it's his best novel, and it is a scathing satire on greed in human nature.
Well, let's hope that we begin to do that then.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Coming up next is John Brewer, a local attorney that I talked with a couple of weeks ago about a book that he really enjoyed. John, what have you brought for us tonight?
I brought a book named Bombshell. It's a great story about espionage and spies. It's a true story about a fellow named Ted Hall and the Manhattan Project in World War II.
So it takes place right here in the good old U.S. of A.
U.S. of A. and Los Alamos, New Mexico, and somewhat in Chicago and New York City.
Okay. Now, Ted Hall, you said, worked on the Manhattan Project, but I take it he had divided loyalties, perhaps?
You know, he's an interesting fellow. First of all, his true name isn't Ted Hall. He was Jewish and had changed his name prior to World War II because of Jewish discrimination in New York City. Accepted to Harvard at a very early age. He was still an undergraduate there at the age of 18 when they plucked him out and assigned him to the Manhattan Project. He is reputed to be the youngest scientist that worked on the development of the atomic bomb.
Okay. Well, did he have a reason? I know we've dealt recently with a lot of spy cases where money seems to be the motivating factor. Did somebody just buy the information from him?
No, you know, Winston Churchill said there were three reasons why people spy, either for philosophical reasons or blackmail or money. Hall was one of those people that was in this philosophical era. You know, often these people appeared to have Russian ancestry, going back to the Tsar. They had this unrealistic, idealistic view of Stalinist Russia as being some type of great place compared to what the Tsars had been. And they did these things because they actually believed they were doing the right thing, that to bring parity to Russia and the United States was some type of positive thing for the world.
Okay. Now, the subtitle of this says it's an untold story, so I take it that we didn't make a great deal of it at the time.
Well, he was unknown for about 50 years. They knew that there was someone based upon intelligence work that had gone on decrypting Russian messages, but they had never actually identified this person for certain until 50 years after the war was over. He was a scientist at that point at Cambridge University in England.
Did he make a quick trip further east when he became identified?
No, he actually lived a very passive life and quiet life until he died. And except maybe for the tabloids, you know, trying to take his photograph and things of that nature. But he was never prosecuted, not unlike some of the, say, the Rosenbergs, who were involved somewhat, but they weren't nearly as guilty as this fellow was in terms of espionage.
Now, the writers of the book, were they the ones who discovered the secret, or?
No, they were actually, I think, two people that worked for Cox out of Atlanta who were news reporters in Moscow. That got into a lot of interpretation. That's just maybe a minor plug there.
They just found out about it and decided that it would be a great story.
They worked on it for several years, both in Russian files and talking to Hall and other people who were involved.
Okay. Well, give us the title and the authors again, John.
Bombshell by Albright and Kunstler. It's a great story.
Thanks very much for being with us, John.
Yes.
Join us again next time.